Howdy Tanglers, Gay Pogue here. Today I want to concentrate on building our Zentangle practice. Contrary to what you might think, it is not about accumulating more and more tangles. It is about learning to create more with what you already have. It's also about getting your tangles into your fingers. Practice every day if possible for just a little while, 10 or 15 minutes with your morning coffee or before turning in at night. A small amount of Zen can go a long way. So today, let's take the tangles we already have and mix and match and embellish them and see what we can come up with. Now let's get tangling. First, we will stop and breathe and relax and think thoughts of gratitude and peace. Now, let's quietly pick up our pencil and put in our corner dots. Carefully turning our tile as we go. Then let's draw some straightish lines to connect those dots. And there we have them. Now we address the string. In lesson 4, coming up, we will do a deep dive into strings. For now, let's just use this one that I'm drawing now. So I think I will just make a little arch like that. And then turn it a bit and make another arch like that. Okay. Now we can lay our pencil aside and pick up our Micron 01. I'm going with that one again today. Now, something I often will tell you not to do, let's go ahead today and put in these arches with ink, just ink over them. There. And then let's come here and aura this line. Like that. And do the same over here. If they're not exactly equal, that's okay. We can work with that. The next thing we're going to aura is these lines again. Now let's make a nice little aura there. And come over here and put an aura there. Same thing over here. I think what I may do is put my aura on the outside of these to make the centers look a little more even. But they don't have to be even. Turn your tile to keep that right hand comfortable. And there we are. Now I bet you know what we're going to enter into here, since it looks a little bit like Shattuck that we did before. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to draw an arch. And now today, let's be careful and leave plenty of space between our lines here. Maybe don't make them quite as close together as you did last time, because we're going to add something in there. Okay. Now, let's go into this first band and squish some little orbs in there. Kind of make sure the tops and bottoms of these orbs go over the edges. Now this little bitty white space there, we call that an we call these interstices. They're little spaces between things. Let's fill those little spaces in with ink. And then move on to the next just this top band on each one of these little arches. Squish them in and then fill in those little interstices. Like that. We're still doing Shattuck, but we're adding a little extra piece of interest to it. A variation. And there are probably hundreds of things we can do between all of these little lines, but this is the one we're doing today. Okay, now that we've done that, let's add one more thing to create interest and emphasis. We're going to use what we call line weight. It's making the lines look fatter or skinnier to perhaps mimic shadows or just to look pretty. So what I'm going to do here is right here where this line meets this outside border, I'm just going to add a little bit of rounding there. Just round that line off a little bit. And then I'll come down and do the next one. Doing this creates a certain elegance to our tangles, rounding lines off and making the line get thinner and fatter. Now I'm going to come down the other side. I'll start down here. I'm keeping these little roundings next to the borders and on the underside of those lines. They also add a little 3D effect to things. Like some dust got caught in the corner. There you go. Okay. So now our Shattuck looks just a little more fleshed out. That's where we're headed. Now, I'm going to do something a little different for you. We're going to put the same tangle in both of these spaces to make it look like it's behind. And I may even put a little arch right here. So here, here, and here, we're going to do bales. You remember bales. It's a big grid, and let's make our grid plenty big because we're going to fill it in with some cool stuff. Take this line, we're going to draw it hollow bar fashion behind here. That line went on up that way. It would just stay behind that. Now, leaving a nice space, let's draw this line going behind and on up that way. All right, the next line would be probably about right here. So let's do that. And then that. Turn it over, come around, and let's leave it like that. Now we're going to make those perpendicular lines to these first lines. So let's just do that one. That's easy. Come out here a little bit there. All of these are about in the same place, but if we put one there, we'd probably put one here and carry it on down here. Okay. There. And there. And we're just eyeballing all this. Now, let's do the next step of Bales, which is simple. And that is to put our little puffy pillows on every line, both sides. Puffy pillows. Take your time, enjoy the process. Believe me, when I first worked on this tile, I did not do it all in one session. I came back several times to work on it. So I don't create my Zentangle tiles to finish them in 10 or 15 minutes, but rather to work on them for little stretches. Okay. Okay. Now let's go back to this first tile that we did. You remember crescent moon. Well, we're going to kind of squish some of that crescent moon into these spaces. And let me show you how we're going to do that. So we're going to make our little ladybug in the corner, like that. Then we're going to color the little ladybug in carefully, patiently. And then we're going to aura the inside. Rather than starting out, though, with an aura over each one, let's just aura the entire edge like that. After playing with it a bunch, I decided this made each one look its most elegant. Now, another aura. And one more. We can squish it in. I've been using the word squish a lot, but we are really squishing a lot of things in. So there, that's one. But wait, there's more. Because when we do that in each square, we're going to wind up with what we call a meta pattern. And let's say I put my little ladybugs in the corner of each of those, and suddenly we wind up with that circle, that dark circle in there. A meta pattern is a pattern that's made with another pattern. So this is a meta pattern that's going to just show up. Sometimes they just show up. We haven't really planned them. I didn't really plan this, but when I finished it the first time, there it was, looking almost like a piece of Renaissance silk or something. If you are enjoying this lesson, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. If you click on the bell, you will be notified when a new lesson is released. So there we are. And now, let's tackle this large area at the top. I was thinking of something kind of exploding out of this, and we'll see if we can make that happen. First, we're going to see our old friend Jetties and make some large-ish orbs in this space. And then maybe a few smaller ones. You might almost think of them like bubbles. When you blow bubbles outside, they wobble a little bit. Okay, that ought to be about enough. Instead of just putting a black band around each one of these, let's decorate them with elements we've already used here and maybe even some other places, and maybe even just invent a few things. So I'm thinking we want these jetties to look pretty festive, since it's going to be like an explosion. So I'm going to draw a band here, similar to the band we drew before. And instead of coloring it in entirely, I'm going to squish some orbs into it. Like that. And then I'm going to color in these little interstices. And I might do that on one more, but we're not finished with it. We'll come back and add things. So maybe I'll make this one a little smaller. Squishing orbs. If you make them a little bit smaller at the edges, they'll kind of have a little bit more of a 3D effect. I didn't work on that very hard here, but maybe in another lesson we will. Now I'm going to add a band here, and I'm going to put in just some zigzaggy lines. And color in half of the zigzags, the little triangles. And maybe here, I'll just do a triangle there, and out of here I'll make little lines and add a little dot at the bottom. here, I think I'm going to put down some ladybugs. And then aura. And make a little tassel on it. This one I'm going to mimic a little bit of the back and forth arches of Shattuck. Just fill them in every which way. And what else can we mimic down here? Oh, I see something. So we could put that along there and just mimic Bales. By using some of the elements that we've already drawn on the tile, we kind of unify the piece. It becomes a cohesive composition instead of just various individual tangles stuck inside little boxes. So we keep maybe mimicking even a bit more. We could do that. Okay. Okay. Then I think I'm going to add some orbs here. And maybe just scallops here. Okay. You get the idea. You really want to try to have fun with this, seeing how you could possibly do some really unusual things. All right. Now, in order to get it to look like it's really exploding, we're going to add in some printemps, all sizes, and we're going to do it hollabaugh fashion. So we're going to be doing some more drawing behind, like these printemps are coming out of this space, all different sizes. And maybe not even closing the end, leave them kind of scraggly like pinwheels or something. Okay. To further enhance our explosion field, let's just add tiny orbs all over the place, spilling out like seeds. And with this, you just kind of keep going until you feel like you've done enough or you're tired. I usually lay a tile that I think I've finished over to the side and come back in the next day and look at it long and hard and see if there's something else it needs. Maybe redoing a line here, maybe adding a little something there. Usually I wind up adding more shading. That's often what I need to add. Deepen the shading. Anyway, this can be kind of fun. When you hold it back at arm's length, you can kind of begin to see these little elements all working together in your piece. You don't have to be slavish about these elements, just kind of throw them in. And I would suggest that in this next week or two, pay attention to the art and design that you see around you. Try to pick out repeated elements and judge how they work in the overall picture. I say the next few weeks, but I bet you'll develop a habit of it and you won't be able to look at anything without picking up on patterns that you could take home and tangle. So there, I think that's about enough for today on that. It's all I'm going to do with my border, I think, is just outline it a little bit like this. Just make it look a little rough, as though this were a bag somehow, and when all of these things exploded out of it, the bag became misshapen. Rick and Maria talk about giving our our tiles some more love. That's coming back in and saying, well, I need to thicken this line here, define it a little bit more. Or something. Now let's pick up our pencil and start shading. We can start here, just these edges on this shaddock. We've already begun a little bit by rounding those corners. We've added a little shadow there. But let's add some more shadow. Okay. Pick up your tortillon and slowly, gently work the edge of it. Leave the part right up next to the border dark. In fact, you may want to go back and darken it even more. Just smooth those little edges out, and you'll see how this highlight forms down the middle and really gives that 3D effect. Okay. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing around this brocade pattern. too. In fact, I may make all of this dark because it's behind. We'll just let that shadow stay there. Putting these dark shadows in also creates drama, just like our drama tangles with the solid black in them. And it creates some drama for the viewer. Now, I think I'm going to shade each one of these a little bit, and maybe just kind of from the bottom. And I may add in some around there too. Right. There we have it, I think. At least that's where I'm going to stop. Before we sign it, let's turn it over and go ahead and write down the tangles that we used. We used Shattuck, Bales, Crescent Moon, Jetties, and Printemps. And all of these are from Zentangle HQ. While we're back here, we can go ahead and sign our name. And today for me is September 2nd, 2023. And then I'm going to put my brand on the front. Most tanglers call this thing the chop. It's what a craftsman would put on the back of something he was finishing up. But over here in Texas, it sort of reminds me of a brand. So I'm going to call it a brand sometimes. There we go. There's my brand.